Alright, so here I have the 6-piece solar power connection cable kit from Harbor Freight under the Thunderbolt name. I just want to show you what's inside. So all the pieces in this kit have SAE style quick connects on one end. On the positive, this is a non-proprietary type of connection, so you can use this with all kinds of things. You find these a lot in automotive type applications. So the instructions in the packaging don't give any indication what size wire is being used in this, which I think we could take to mean that it is very thin. So a quick internet search tells us that this is 20 gauge, which is obviously very thin, but for low wattage and low voltage, low amperage use, it's enough. You can connect your stuff and it will work. I would tell you to reference gauge usage charts so that you know what size cabling you need. I wouldn't necessarily count on these if you have a heavier duty system. You don't want to overload one little connector or piece of wire and start a fire. But that is all based on watts, volts, amps, and the length of the cable runs that you are using. So to get all these pieces for the low price of $12 is pretty fair. Not that they're the highest quality, but even just this one long extension cable alone, something like that would cost about $10 on Amazon right now, for instance. And then you get all these other connections. So this connection would hypothetically connect to a battery. Here you have the 12-volt cigarette lighter style connection. Here you have a standard DC style connection. Here is the female cigarette lighter style connection. And here is a little LED indicator light, so you could see if there is power flowing. So probably the biggest downside of this kit is they don't actually provide the correct connection to connect, say, a battery to female cigarette lighter, for instance. And what I mean by that is if you take a solar charge controller, here's a super simplistic Harbor Freight offering of a cheap solar charge controller. They do have a more expensive one. You have a solar input and a battery output and a load connection, which covered those wires so they're not touching. But if you look at this setup, you have everything you need to connect to the Harbor Freight solar panel to the quick connect input, the second one there, solar. So this is what's coming off the Harbor Freight solar panel. Okay, so you can see I hooked up the cable coming out of the solar panel to, all right, so now those are connected to the battery. However, now, how do I get that power from the battery to any appliance? This is the problem with this kit. They don't offer anything with eyelets. It's all quick connects. So even this load output here is just bare wire, which means we're still going to have to either cut and crimp and reconnect this cigarette lighter to get some power out of this battery. So why wouldn't they just put something with eyelets, even an adapter with eyelets that went to the same SAE quick connect, because then you could hook up any of these other options to it. However, even this little DC connector, that's not going to go to anything without, yet again, cutting, maybe crimping, soldering, taping, essentially making a janky connection even janky. So that's my thoughts on this little kit. I know you don't have to buy all your stuff at Harbor Freight, but if you're just trying to do something off the shelf, this kit is almost enough. It almost has all the right things. The other cable connection that is notably absent from this kit is anything that goes to a USB. So that's interesting. Overall, I'd say these cables are not super poor quality, but they are very light gauge cable. So that's probably the biggest drawback. And then obviously if it doesn't have the connections you need, if you have to go source them somewhere else, then that's not quite as helpful as it otherwise could be.